What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel for another episode of the Ask Me Anything series. I hope you all had a great Super Bowl weekend. If you're a football fan, I hope you enjoyed the game, all that good stuff. As always, huge thank you to all of you who sent questions in, even the ones that don't get featured in the video. Just know I read them all. I appreciate all of you guys. Also, I haven't done this in a while, so I want to plug my second channel. For those of you who don't know, I have another channel where I upload shorter form NHL content, like 1 to 3 minute clips, usually in that range. So if that's something that you're interested in, the link to that channel is at the top of the description. You could also find it on the channels tab when you go to the homepage of this channel. So with that all being said, let's go ahead and get started. This first question comes from a user who says, with the historic seasons they are having, do you think Bedard and Fantilli will be a better number 1 and number 2 than McDavid and Eichel? I do truly believe Connor Bedard is a generational talent, and he's a guy who's going to be able to put up 100-point seasons in the NHL. I think Adam Fantilli is a future number 1 center. So much hype around those two guys, Bedard especially, and rightfully so, but I'm going to say no to this comparison just because I don't think it's fair to compare players that aren't even drafted yet to somebody like Connor McDavid, who, when it's all said and done, when he retires, I think is going to be in the conversation of the greatest player of all time. Bedard's only 17. I think it'd be a little bit premature to make the McDavid comparisons, even though it's kind of hard not to because of the numbers he's putting up in the CHL, very similar to McDavid's numbers in the CHL in his draft year. The next question we have comes from 12 Lego 25, who says, since Tarasenko has joined the Rangers, leaving Patrick Kane upset that happening as that was the team he wanted to join, where do you think he is going to go? And also really appreciate the support. So yeah, Patrick Kane actually weighed in on the Vladimir Tarasenko trade to the Rangers. He said, it's not like the happiest I've been to hear about a trade. I think the Rangers are a team that you definitely pay attention to and definitely are intrigued by for obvious reasons. If things were going to happen, that was the team I was definitely looking at. It seems like they kind of filled their void and went ahead and made a deal, so it is what it is. I can definitely understand why Kane is a little bit upset. If he were to get traded, the Rangers, I think, would have been maybe the best fit out there. There's the connection of him being from Buffalo, New York. There's the Artemi Panarin connection. Those two were a very dynamic duo in Chicago. But now with the Rangers adding Vladimir Tarasenko, that completely takes them out of the equation. So what other team could step up? What other team could I see Patrick Kane potentially going to? One team I think we should keep an eye on, and I know a lot of you guys are probably going to roll your eyes when you hear this, the Vegas Golden Knights. With Mark Stone going on the long-term injured reserve, they have cap space now, and with Mark Stone out of the lineup, it leaves a pretty massive void on the right wing. We know the Vegas Golden Knights like to make big splashes. They're always in on the big name players, so I wouldn't be surprised if they check in on Patrick Kane. I think an Eichel-Kane duo would be really fun. Next up, this question comes from a user who says, what do you think a potential trade between Edmonton and San Jose could look like for Erik Karlsson? Do you see Edmonton even considering including Bouchard/Broberg? And also really appreciate the support. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, according to Chris Johnson, Edmonton and San Jose are actively exploring whether they can find a financial fit that would make a Karlsson trade make sense. Chris Johnson said that according to his sources. And as much as I want to see Erik Karlsson on the same team as guys like McDavid and Draisaitl, I just don't know how it would be possible to make this work. The Edmonton Oilers are pretty tight up against the salary cap. Not sure how they'd be able to fit on Karlsson's $11.5 million cap hit. The Sharks have made it clear that they're not willing to retain 50% of Karlsson's deal, which that makes sense. Why would they? That's just too long for too much money. Even if the Sharks were willing to retain like 25%, you still have to send a lot of money back to San Jose in this deal. Jesse Puljujarvi would certainly be a candidate. It seems like he's on the outs, and the Oilers are wanting to get rid of his $3 million cap hit. Maybe Tyson Barrie could go the other way. He has a $4.5 million cap hit, so that's $7.5 million there. And then, of course, when you make the money work, if you can, that's when you add the picks, prospects, future assets, whatever it is that San Jose would be demanding in an Erik Karlsson trade. I'm guessing it would start with a first-round pick and a top prospect, maybe another draft pick like a second or third or something like that. I'm hoping it happens because Erik Karlsson playing at this high of a level, I want to see him on a contending team. I just don't know how likely it is that they're going to be able to pull off a trade like this because it's just such a difficult contract to move, especially mid-season. The next question we have comes from Jelly Jeffrey, who says, if the NHL kept their contract tens, I'm guessing you meant terms, to max 5 years, do you think that more teams would be under the salary cap and more trades would happen during the season? Also, really appreciate the kind words. I definitely do think more teams would be under the salary cap and trades would be a lot easier. Like, for an example, Erik Karlsson, who we just talked about, an Erik Karlsson trade would be a lot easier if the deal he signed with San Jose originally was only 5 years as opposed to 8. great. I definitely can't imagine this is something we're ever going to see happen, though. I don't think the NHLPA would want to go through with this because obviously being able to sign deals longer than 5 years is good for the players. As an NHL player, you want to make as much guaranteed money as you can, and obviously it's a lot easier to get more guaranteed money in an 8-year deal as opposed to a 5-year deal. And honestly, now that I think about it, if it was like a 5-year max term on a deal as opposed to 8, I feel like we just see the AAVs of deals go through the roof, so maybe it wouldn't make that much of a difference in terms of teams being under the salary cap, honestly. Moving along now, this next question comes from Glimpse, who says, who do you think Chychrun is going to? He was healthy scratched because of trade-related reasons against the Blues, and also really appreciate the kind words. It's definitely sounding like it's going to be the Los Angeles Kings, and that makes total sense. I think all along the Kings have been the best fit for Jakob Chychrun. They need, a stud on the left side to really solidify their decor, in my opinion. Chychrun fits the Kings timeline beautifully. The Kings are a team with a plethora of future assets that they'd be able to offer up to the Arizona Coyotes in a package for Chychrun. Makes all the sense in the world. I think it's only a matter of time before Jakob Chychrun is a member of the Los Angeles Kings. Nick Kypreos said, I think yesterday, that he was hearing Brandt Clarke is going to be a part of the return for Arizona, but then that was shut down today as Brandt Clarke's agent said that Clarke was informed by the Kings he isn't getting traded. So I'm really interested to see what the return is going to look like for Arizona. I think it's likely we see a guy like Alex Turcotte in that deal, obviously multiple draft picks, and I think there's even a chance we see Karel Vizmelka as part of the trade going to Los Angeles. I think there's potential for this to be a massive deal. Moving on now, this next question comes from Nick, who says, with the halfway point come and gone, what team has been the biggest letdown with them having a big offseason last year? Columbus, Ottawa, Detroit, etc. And also really appreciate the support. I definitely feel like it has to be Columbus. After signing Johnny Gaudreau in the offseason, I don't think anybody expected the Blue Jackets to be the worst team in the league this season. Obviously, they've had a lot of bad injury luck, but still, like, this team is really bad. They don't have much secondary scoring at all. They can't get a save. They've just had a disaster of a season, but I do think it could be a blessing in disguise. Imagine if they get, the first or second overall pick. It's somebody like Fantilli or even Connor Bedard. Add him to a core of Kent Johnson, Johnny Gaudreau, Patrick Laine, Cole Sillinger, and David Jiricek, and you got a pretty bright future, I think. This next question is a really interesting one from Nicholas, who says, if the NHL would restart with a fantasy draft, who would be the top 5 picks and in what order? It's funny you ask this. One of my friends actually asked me this the other day, and we had a whole conversation about it. I really think like the top 5 picks, maybe even the entire first round, like there wouldn't be a player drafted over the age of like 26. I think teams would definitely want, that young star to be the face of their franchise for a long time. Just off the cuff, my personal top 5 would be obviously McDavid first overall, and then I would say Matthews or Makar second overall, maybe, or Draisaitl. I think he can be in that conversation as well. Those would be my 2, 3, and 4. Not 100% sure in what order. And then 5th, maybe even a guy like Jack Hughes, I think would be in the conversation for sure. I'm probably forgetting guys for sure, but that's just my personal top 5 just off the top of my head. Really interested to hear what your guys' top 5 would be, and are you kind of in the same boat as me where you don't think that the best veterans in the NHL would get drafted early? You think it'd be all young guys so a team can really get, that franchise cornerstone? Next up, this question comes from our fan, who says, with the trade deadline approaching, do you think Adam Henrique would be a target for Colorado? They could use the center depth, and Anaheim will certainly be taking calls on most guys this deadline. Henrique is also having a pretty good season this year overall. I actually wouldn't mind that fit for Colorado at all. Adam Henrique is a guy who is not getting talked about a lot in terms of trade rumors. Frank Saravalli just released his newest trade bait board, and I don't even think Henrique was in the 40 players on that list. But like you said, he is having a really strong season overall. Solid veteran center. He's got 19 goals. The $5.8 million cap hit is definitely something that I think would scare a lot of teams away. But if Anaheim would be willing to retain, maybe even up to half that, obviously that makes Henrique a pretty cheap player, but I'm not sure if Anaheim would, because Henrique is actually signed through next season at that cap hit as well, so he wouldn't just be a rental. I think the most likely scenario with Adam Henrique is we see him play out this season with the Ducks and then maybe be, one of the bigger pieces moved at the trade deadline next season, where he'll be in the final year of his deal. And now for the final question of today's episode. This one comes from Tyler Aaron 65, who says, there's always a few trades every year with players that no hockey fans saw coming, so what do you think are some players that could be traded that will be a surprise to everyone? I mean, Adam Henrique, who we just talked about, could definitely be one. I haven't heard a lot about his name, floating around in trade rumors. One team that I think it's going to be really interesting to see what they do is Florida. They have Anthony Duclair and Patrick Hornqvist set to return soon, but they can't activate those guys because they don't have the cap space. So either they have to trade those guys or trade other players on the roster to free up space to activate them. Guys like Sam Bennett, Sam Reinhart, I think could be candidates to move if Florida does want to go that route of freeing up cap space to activate Duclair and Hornqvist. So I think Florida is a sleeper team and they could potentially make a big move that would surprise a lot of people. But that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Ask Me Anything series. Again, like I said at the beginning, huge thank you to every single one of you who submitted questions. I appreciate all of you. You guys make this series so much fun for me to do every single week. If you guys enjoyed and you want another episode next Monday, please be sure to leave a like. That is the best way to show your support. If you're interested, check out the second channel. Link is at the top of the description. And if this is your first time checking out this channel and you want more NHL content just like this all season long, be sure to hit that subscribe button and I will talk to you all soon.